Barbara Newhall Follett had published her first novel at 12, traveled the world by 14, and regularly corresponded with scientists, artists, and sailors. So at age 15, when she ran away for the first time, it was because she couldn't understand why she would be forced into a life not created wholly on her own. It won't be the first time Barbara disappears, because in 1939, at age 25, she does it again. This is the second part of her story.
Hi, I'm Vanessa.
And I'm Aimee.
And you're listening to She Goes by Jane. At the end of this episode and every episode, we will be joined by a special guest who will read an original poem by Amy Baker about the women we're featuring. This week, we are joined by Kerry O'Malley.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Amy.
Are you ready for today's episode?
I am ready. I don't know where it's going, but I am ready.
Okay, so as a reminder, on our last episode, we talked about Barbara Newhall Follett and her disappearance at age 15. Now, as we've discussed, Barbara's life is pretty complicated, but we last left off talking about how Barbara is left in Los Angeles, specifically Pasadena, and is facing the prospects of being sent to junior college, a fate she cannot stand, so she runs away. Vanessa, what are you thinking about Barbara's story so far?
So she seems like I'm having a hard time picturing a real person. She seems like a character from like a book or a movie. Mm. She does not seem like a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she sounds like one of those overly gifted, overly smart kids, but she's also like a little sassy. She's a little bit of trouble. Mm-hmm. She's like all of the things, but all of the things plus.
Yeah, and like we discussed, most of what we know about Barbara comes directly from her own letters. And if you had just handed them to me, and I just have a hard time because like she's a child when she writes most of those letters, and it doesn't seem like a child's voice or a child's writing ability, right? She's clearly very gifted. And I think sometimes maybe that giftedness, people expected certain things from her.
Right. Like a different level was expected.
Right. Like, I think that often happens with kids who present themselves maturely, is that you forget that they're still kids and they're still going through those like emotional pains and like, yeah, they're still kids.
But they're definitely kids, whether they're smart or not, right?
Right.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah. Now, before we get into what happened to Barbara, I'd like to thank Barbara's half-nephew, which we decided to pronounce his name. Mm-hmm. How?
Stefan. I think it's Stefan, but it could be Stefan.
Cook, who compiled her letters into Barbara Newhall Follett, A Life in Letters, and maintains the website for Azalia. I highly recommend it. Like, he is also the driving force behind getting like versions of her books out there in the world now, so you can access some of Barbara's own writings thanks to his work. And also specifically for this episode in particular, thank you to the author Daniel Mills, who wrote about Barbara for the Los Angeles Review of Books. His work was instrumental in constructing a likely understanding of what happened to Barbara. He is definitely going to go into much more detail about that in that article, and will, of course, provide some links for that. But yeah. Now, with the threat of junior college looming, again, I don't want to make light of it, but like...
Well, I know, because it's just so normal for us, right? Like, right. The idea of just like going to college and having a job and like doing like routine kind of socializing is not dreadful to us, but right. It really is to poor Barbara.
Yeah, this is like worst case scenario for her. So she leaves Los Angeles. Like, she'd left a letter for her mother indicating that her plan was to head to the Far East, in her words, to work for a group of engineers. It's unclear who she had been in touch with to concoct this plan, but a likely candidate is a man named Andrew Burt, who she had met during her travels. He's an adult male. It's not clear what their relationship is, but she spent a lot of time with him during like her travels with Helen alone.
Right. And to be clear, I mean, to go back to that letter. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just simply to work with a group of engineers or for a group of engineers. It was to work for, what was it? a whole class of marine engineers who have gathered together for the whole purpose of working out miracles and life-old dreams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like everything is this intensity that I think is like extremely rare.
Yes.
To not only have that intensity, but to share that intensity. I mean, like, we all have those like moments where we are a little bit like extra in our thoughts, but we usually don't let that come out.
Yeah. You know, Barbara's always extra.
There's nothing is stifled. Nothing is held back.
No.
So, yeah. So she's gone off to do these life-changing things.
Yeah. Now, in consideration of her guardian, Mildred, Barbara has also left her a note expressing that she's leaving. And springing to action, though, Mildred hurriedly contacts law enforcement once she receives this note, including law enforcement in San Francisco, which she believes Barbara will be, you know, using either as a destination or a stop along her route. So she's like, who can I contact to find Barbara?
Really? So Mildred is actually like on it.
Yes.
So is she a little bit more maternal maybe than Helen?
Well, yeah. I mean, Mildred's been left Barbara. You know, it's like her ward, so to speak, right?
Right.
Yeah, so she's like, oh my God, I've lost a child.
I've lost a child that's not even mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like this forward thinking, calling San Francisco does spoil Barbara's flight. Like on Thursday, September 19th, 1929, just days after her escape from Los Angeles, she's found at the Spalding Hotel on O'Farrell Street in San Francisco, registered under the name Kay Andrews. Entering her room, officers do find Barbara inside. She claims she just needs a moment to write some letters. But what happens next is described in various ways, but some say she moved to jump out of the window in a suicide attempt, and others say that she was trying to escape. So divided reporting here.
She did jump out the window though?
No, they like
okay, they stopped her. Okay.
Yeah. Now, either way, Barbara's, you know, she's stopped. She is sent to a juvenile detention center where she is held until the courts decide like exactly what to do with her. The thing is that this story likely would have garnered some attention in general if it was just an average teenager running away from home. But the fact that it's a well-known teenage author that has been taken to juvenile detention is quite explosive. So the newspapers make quick work of publicizing that Barbara Newhall Follett is being held, including details of her time in the hotel, such as that she may have wanted to die by suicide. And Barbara is interviewed extensively during her time there, making it clear, you know, why she's unhappy with her present circumstances, and papers across the United States are running these stories.
So this becomes a thing.
This is a big thing.
Huh.
It's like paper after paper is publicizing updates, right? Now, in her interviews, Barbara declines to say much about her guardians except this. They plan to make Dr. Tor Schultz of Pasadena my guardian and send me to Pasadena Junior College. I can't stand schools, and I detest Los Angeles.
Strong feelings.
Yes. It takes all the spirit out of me in that heat. I love San Francisco, so I just packed my baggage, left a note, and came up here. Oh, what a glorious time I've had these days. I should say not. I've been alone all the time and free. I can't do any writing if I'm hedged by restrictions all the time. I can't be free until I'm 21. Then I can do no writing until then.
So was she never planning on going, like, where was she leaving to?
Well, she told her mother she was going to Vancouver, but like
Right.
this long pit stop in San Francisco. Yeah.
So was she still ever intending to make it to Vancouver?
It's unclear.
Okay.
Yeah. This is where I wish like we had every letter possible from her.
Right. Just because I didn't know if that was just like, oh, I'll have them looking in Vancouver, but really I'll be here.
Yeah, honestly, everyone like shake out your old letters, family letters, see if you have a Barbara letter. She really wrote to like everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. She also says this, I love Los Angeles with an utter aversion. I left a note when I went away saying that I was going, so I do think they might have left me alone. It is humiliating for me to be here in the detention home.
She's acting like an adult who's being held somewhere.
Yeah. You'll notice that Barbara said it was humiliating to be in a detention center like this, and this is an ongoing theme as she processes this experience. She tells one reporter, "What I hate about it all is the sordidness and vulgarity of being arrested. It has none of the beauty or grief of tragedy in it. If it were beautiful, I wouldn't mind so much."
Really?
Yeah.
But I don't know how we go from, like, it's not beautiful, so it's humiliating.
Yeah.
Like, where's the middle point?
There's no middle points with Barbara. So, but the question remains, like, what are we going to do with Barbara? Like, they hesitate to release her back to her guardians in Los Angeles because she seems so disinclined to go. There is this kind of, question that this is such in the atmosphere that the doctor, Dr. Schultz, actually travels to Maine, where Barbara's father, Wilson, and his partner, Margaret Whipple, are staying. And the doctor asks them if they might make a home for Barbara with them.
How is he so dedicated?
I have no idea, but that was like,
our doctors wouldn't do that.
No, but he travels there. He goes to their house and he's like, "Will you take your daughter?" Now, from a letter that Whipple writes, it's clear that Wilson and Whipple are at least considering it, and Whipple hopes this might actually speed along the prospects of a divorce between Wilson and Helen.
How many years has it been now, though?
So it's only been, at this point, a year and a half-ish.
A year and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, if Whipple's got a point.
Yeah, but Helen's like, heck no.
No.
Now, to pursue this, perhaps Wilson and Whipple, they do head to the Los Angeles area where Barbara has been moved to a new juvenile detention facility because she won't be returning to her guardians.
She'd rather be in juvenile detention than with her guardians.
She's like, absolutely not. Now, instead of taking Barbara to Maine with them, it seems something happens and Wilson and Whipple don't take custody. Instead, Barbara is placed with a family in Pasadena. They have a daughter named Alice who will become a constant friend to Barbara. But this is where Barbara waits until Helen returns from Honolulu. Now, when Helen arrives, she's enraged to find Whipple is there despite Wilson being told not to bring her along. Right? She's like, "Hey, our daughter does not like the fact that you're leaving me for another woman. Maybe not bring her." And,
But I would love to be supportive of Helen's thoughts there, but Helen's not exactly a shining star of a parent.
No, I mean, I would take Helen over Wilson, but so Wilson goes, so does Whipple. And when Helen arrives, she finds that Wilson is actually blaming her for Barbara's current mental health and behaviors, and she finds these accusations just very unjust. But in terms of Barbara specifically, Helen finds her daughter is angry and kind of defiant, and Barbara basically is rationalizing her behavior, stating, "Hey, if her father can live a life that how he wants, why can't she?"
Because she is a child.
Now, ultimately, Barbara decides not to return east to live with Wilson and Whipple, and with her guardian family no longer being able to take care of her, she returns to her mother. And the two of them rent various places in Los Angeles, and start trying to figure out life together. Now, during this time, Barbara seems to maintain correspondence with several men. I will emphasize they're all adult men. One of which is a man she met on her travels. His name is Togusa Riggs, and he has promised he has foregone all other women in Samoa for her and is routinely asking her to return to marry him. And in one letter he writes, "I never finish with you until the end of this whole world."
The drama of these people. So I have one question though, and I'm wondering if any of our listeners have the same question. So Barbara is at this point, she's what, 15?
Yes.
And she has all these conversations and all these friendships with these older men who are, you're making it clear they're adults, right? Grown men. What, 20s, 30s? How old are they?
That would be my estimation, yeah.
Okay. Does she look older than she is? Or is she because I have not seen any pictures of her, is she very clearly a 15-year-old child at this point?
Yeah, Barbara she's got these very kind of elfin features. She does not
So she's not it's these men aren't seeing her and thinking, "Oh, she's in her 20s."
No.
No. Okay. So she's clearly a kid.
Yeah, she's she like maintains this throughout her entire life. She's got these, she's like this like little elfin forest creature look to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a whimsical
Yeah.
little kid.
Yeah.
But I mean, I get that she probably doesn't speak like a child.
Yeah, but
But she is very clearly a kid.
Yeah, if you look at her photos when she's 15, you would say like, yeah, that's a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, one of her other correspondents seems to be Andrew Burt, and it does seem that she has at least some sort of visit from Ed Anderson, the second mate she met on her voyage from Honolulu to Washington, because he later writes about visiting her in Pasadena. But probably more importantly, Barbara starts writing again, and I don't know if she's particularly pleased with her output, but she is writing. Now, this is going to start a bit or start to feel like a bit, they did this, then they did this. But some of what happens in this part of Barbara's life does play out later into how she sees and reacts to what's happening in her world. So on her 16th birthday, Barbara and Helen head back east, and it would be reasonable to assume that they would head back to Connecticut, but instead they end up in Washington, D.C., and then later New York City. At this point, they're both selling short pieces and trying to sustain themselves, and Barbara finishes a novel manuscript, but she sends it out and it's rejected. By 1930, Barbara was taking a shorthand course in order to get work as a stenographer or a typist because she reasons that those jobs are in high demand. Barbara writes that she's paid $6 a piece to write synopses for Fox Film Corporation and is sometimes handed book manuscripts and asked to review them for $5 a piece. And by August of that year, she makes plain in another letter that she's the one supporting her entire family with her income. But she's come to this realization. She writes, I think I'm ready to live a much happier story of life from now on. I mean, to make the best of circumstances and of myself and get a lot of pleasure out of anything and everything. I wish poor Helen could do that as effectively as I have learned to do so. Yeah.
So she's trying to change her frame of thought.
Mm-hmm. And, she is trying to make the best of things. Like, she does try. So for the next year, the family is still living most of the time in New York City and trying to hold things together financially. By the summer of 1931, they're able to rent a cabin in the summer in Norwich, Vermont. So not far from the New Hampshire border. Again, New Hampshire is Barbara's love. Barbara stays there with her mother and her younger sister, who's back in the story.
Yay!
She's hoping that while there, she can work on her next novel draft. This one she calls Lost Island, which she says has adventure and possibly romance in it. Unfortunately, she actually spends much of her time at this cabin trying to write other pieces for an income. So just for clarity, again, most of what we know about what Barbara is thinking and feeling comes from her own letters. These aren't, of course, a perfect record. She doesn't write about this meeting that happens in any of the surviving letters. They probably exist. There probably are some letters somewhere, but again, not every letter was collected back. But we do know she meets a man named Nickerson Rogers, who has just graduated from Dartmouth that year. He's going to play another central role in Barbara's life, but perhaps she doesn't quite know it yet.
So many men.
Yes.
So we have to remember Nickerson Rogers as well.
Rogers stays.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, throughout this time, nearly 2 years since she left Honolulu, she has still been corresponding regularly with Ed Anderson, the second mate she met on the passage to the United States, and she mentions him in her correspondence with others. So he's often in these letters. So it's clear she's getting communications from him regularly. And it's clear that he means a lot to her. And in early 1932, he conveys that he would like to come and see her. But it sounds like she sent him a letter that's less than enthusiastic about this.
Oh, no. And so they are actually what is this? 4 years of corresponding with him?
2 years. So at least 2 years of correspondence.
At least 2 years. Okay.
Yeah. So they're...
And she is not excited to see him?
No, despite these very I mean, it's very clear she did hold him in high esteem. And so he drew some conclusions, I think, about her interest. And so he's like, I'm going to come see you. And she's like, oh, no. And that's likely because during that winter, Nickerson had been traveling down to his parents' home in Brookline, Massachusetts. And he's using that as a base in order to see Barbara.
So had Nickerson not been there, she would have been more excited to see Ed.
Yes.
But now she's like, oh, Ed's coming.
What I do?
But Nickerson's here.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
yeah.
Nickerson is kind of a cute name.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It is. It's quirky.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, Ed writes to her, of patience I have very small store. In fact, it's a virtue entirely lost when practiced with women, as you once convinced me. Patience seems to spell insincerity in a woman's eyes. In fact, I think women may even spell it as impotence. So you see how I feel, Bar. I wonder if you'll understand. Friendship and love are not mere words, yet this is about all we've been to each other, just words and ideas, and I'm a bit tired of that. This is the reason I'm not going to commence a long, protracted correspondence with you. Nothing has been clarified that way. All it ever did was impose restrictions on me. I was so in love with you that I forgot there were other women. How very quaint and old-fashioned, Bar. So let's be friends if you think best. And if you want to come out here, then please come. And if you don't want to, don't. But for heaven's sakes, don't use me as a psychic examination and try studying my reactions to one impulse rather than another.
Whew. He is a wordy little second mate, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like, what
he has all the
heck is going on here? Also, very quaint and old-fashioned. Is that what it's called when you're a grown-up man dating a teenager? Or trying to pressure your teenager into... This whole paragraph to me seems like he's trying to bring their relationship physical.
Yeah, so he's like, hey, all we have been is these... And it's very clear from what he is saying that there's been expressions of love in their letters and ideas of what they might mean to one another, but it's all been letters.
Right.
And so when he's like, hey, let's move this out of this. So she's 17 at this point, 17, 18 at this point. And he's like, let's move to the next phase of our relationship. And she's like, oh, hold on, no. And he's like, wait a minute, what?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he says, like, essentially, okay, like if that's not in the offering, then like I can't continue these letters in which we're professing our love for one another if
it can't be like an in-person love. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how Barbara feels about Ed stating that he's going to stop communicating with her, but it does seem, despite his declaration, that she doesn't believe it. Like, she thinks she'll meet up with him in the future.
Okay.
Also, by this point, she's investing a lot of time and energy into her plans with Nickerson. In a letter to her friend in March 1932, she described Nickerson as an amiable lad with occasional unsuspected depths.
What does that even mean?
That he's nice and sometimes he's deep, but not very often.
It's like unsuspecting deepness, too. It's just like, you're just like doing an activity and all of a sudden he just like turns deep.
I mean, it really seems like what she's saying is like, he's nice, but not very thinky.
Oh, he's not a smart lad. No. But I like him.
She then explains, you just like his name.
I do.
Now,
I don't like that he's an adult dating teenager, but...
Well, so at this point, she's like 18 and he's like 22. So.
Okay, so that's not bad. So Nickerson's okay.
She then explains that the two of them are going to go with two other companions that Nickerson knows, and they're going to head down the Appalachian Trail from Maine to Georgia, starting in about mid-July. Now, money is still a problem from Barbara, and she says she plans to fund this trip by writing pieces about it. And honestly, selling pieces about this journey would actually have been a great idea. To explain more fully, the Appalachian Trail was first proposed in 1921, and the year she's writing this, 1932, it's not even a fully completed thing yet. This won't happen for another few years. In fact, at this point, no one had been documented to do a full through hike on the trail like they're planning, so this would have been a really newsworthy trip.
I was thinking that too, and also in these days for like a huge hiking trip like that, that would have been kind of unusual, right? To travel on foot like that.
Yeah.
So.
Now, in the months leading up to this journey, Barbara is working frantically at her novel, Lost Island, trying to get the manuscript done before she leaves, but she laments that, like, she's working, like, 8 hours a day at a job, which leaves little time for anything else, including, writing this novel. She thinks she's done, and she discovers that it needs like another final chapter. But when she shares this work, including this chapter with another writer, he says like it's like not working. Meanwhile, Helen, who'd been working on that book, Magic Portholes, like it is set to release. And this book is one that she's been working on, for quite a while. It captures her and Barbara's experiences leaving the United States to travel. So, despite its likely flaws, Barbara submits her novel to Harper anyway, and then Barbara meets up with Nickerson in Squam Lake in New Hampshire. And she spends a week there kind of trying to get used to physical activity. These days you would be doing extensive training for such a hike, but she's like, a week, we're good. Because she'd been like unaccustomed to doing like that kind of physical activity in New York City.
So, but we would be, if you're not, so she doesn't do this kind of thing.
No, well,
because you would have to be like really into like hiking and at the very least walking.
Yeah. So like she had hiked extensively with her dad when she was little, but like otherwise her life currently has been like writing at her desk. And,
right.
Like not.
I didn't even think about that until just now when you said this, and like, that's pretty ambitious to want to do so much hiking.
Yes.
After not.
Now, this time at Squam Lake, though, becomes like deeply important to her. There's some like actually really beautiful photographs of her from this time. And meanwhile, though, their two other Appalachian Trail companions have actually bailed on the trip. So despite some months of all planning together, that just leaves Barbara and Nickerson to start the journey at the beginning point of the trail on, oh God, I did not look this up beforehand, Katahdin Mountain.
Sure.
In July 1932. I feel like I'm going to have Appalachian Trail people coming for me. I'm sorry. Now, while Barbara was away, Harper did pass on her novel. Now, during her trip, it appears that few heard from Barbara. She does write to Helen in August, and Helen must have indicated that she thought this journey was a mistake because Barbara writes to her, I am convinced that it was not a mistake. How long it will last, I have no way of knowing, but I know for the time being, I'm healthier, browner, stronger, and happier than for years. And if you're wondering what has happened to her relationship with Nickerson, that amiable lad with occasional unsuspected doubts. By that August, she described her relationship with him as semi-platonic.
Wait, what does that mean?
She says, it's the best thing one could imagine, and I frankly don't know of another male creature who could do as well. We intend more or less to stick together as long as it's good.
So was semi-platonic the precursor to friends with benefits?
Yeah, I think so. Now, as the pair is journeying through Vermont, it's clear their relationship must have deepened, and Barbara finds it necessary to write to Ed once again, informing her of her attachment to Nick. It's now October when Ed writes back, and he tells her he doesn't want to live an ordinary life, and he dreamed that she was someone who can join him in this. He tells her, just say where and they'll go. He even promises books.
He still wants her.
Yes.
Okay.
And he begs for her to join him. He says, you're the woman. You're my woman. He then writes, put on your cap and coat and come west. Have a talk with me. If D, his nickname for Nickerson is Dartmouth, by the way. If D is real, he'll understand. If he won't have it, then be a rebel and come on general principles. And if you don't like our prospects, I'll see you safely returned even to him.
Do you really think he'd understand? Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go see my other boyfriend.
Yeah. I don't know how Nickerson would feel about it, but
yeah.
But despite Ed's offer of adventure and books, I mean, like, God, like his letter, I was like, ooh, Ed. I will take the adventure and books.
That is so funny.
Now, Nickerson is the one. She writes that things are easy with him. They get along without quarrels or strife. Now, the two actually bail on the Appalachian Trail early, ending it in Massachusetts, roughly 600 miles into their journey. But then they have a new plan. And by late 1932, the two are sailing to Gibraltar together. Things progress pretty quickly.
Now, that's still 600 miles.
They did make it 600 miles.
But it's still a lot.
That's a lot of walking.
So now they're going
to
Gibraltar. Okay.
Yeah. And the two spent much of early 1933 in Spain. And if you're wondering, no, they're not married, something I get the sense that Helen wasn't thrilled about. Now, Barbara writes to her, "We have agreed that the first requisite of a happy marriage is not to be married."
Oh my gosh. Barbara.
Yeah. But probably in accordance with the times, like Nickerson is introducing her as his wife, something that they both find amusing every time he does. So like when they're out and about or, renting a place or staying somewhere, he says it's his wife. And their unmarried status clearly makes the Meserves, who are longtime family friends, uncomfortable when Barbara and Nickerson decide to visit them in France that May. They wrap up their year abroad with Helen coming to visit them in the Black Forest region of Germany before eventually returning home. So they just go off on this adventure together. Now, for some reason, Nickerson moves back in with his parents in Brookline, Massachusetts, while Barbara rents a room in Boston. And I don't know if they were more uncomfortable masquerading as a married couple in the States, but their relationship is still ongoing because, to the surprise of many, I'm sure they got married on July 7th, 1934. We'll be back in a moment. What's interesting about this time in Barbara's life is this move away from corresponding with some of the stalwarts in her life, like her friend Alice. Like normally you would say these gaps might be from someone throwing away her letters or them not being archived. And I'm sure that does play some sort of a role. But Barbara writes apologetically about her lack of communication quite often.
So is she not corresponding with all those men anymore either?
Yeah, no.
None of the men. Not the girlfriends, definitely not Ed, even though I think you've already made your choice clear that you would have chosen Ed.
I mean, he promised...
Based on book.
And travel.
And travel.
He was like, "I promise you dolphins." And I was like, "Yes, Ed, I would like some dolphins."
Ed, bring me the books.
Right?
Bring me to dolphins.
Yeah. Now... I mean, no shade to my husband, but where are the dolphins, quite frankly?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So she does still correspond with men. In fact, she gets some letters from various sailors who are like, "Oh, hey, don't you think I shouldn't be writing to a married woman?" And she's like, she still writes to them. So, but she just really slows down on the letter writing because she's in a different phase of her life. Like they kind of settle into what I would call a normal life. They both kind of shift around to different jobs. They occasionally live in Vermont, but they spend much of their time in Boston, in the Boston area. We know that she does connect with her father, Wilson, and his now wife, Whipple, who honestly, I'm just going to keep calling her that. But it's not like they're very close. Like she says that Nickerson doesn't like staying there because it seems to her at least that he doesn't quite understand them, or rather their kind of pompous attitudes and egos, right? Even her communication with her mother, Helen, becomes much more sporadic. One of the things that does seem to bring her joy is the rental of what she calls a rundown farmhouse somewhere in New Hampshire. She says she spotted it on a drive, and they've managed to get it for quite a steal of just $2.50 a month. And she says that she and Nickerson go up there and kind of putter around the house, making small improvements on it. By all accounts, Barbara loves it there, which may be no surprise if you remember from our first episode, some of Barbara's favorite childhood memories were in New Hampshire. And I'm really hammering home on this. Now, by 1937, Nickerson was working at Polaroid in a technical job, earning what Barbara says is almost a living wage. She does still have to maintain her work, though, so they can, in her words, continue our present standard of living. Car, occasional beer, weekend trips, and some rather fundamental pleasantries. Around this time, Barbara seems to take up interpretive dance. And this seems to be kind of filling the void writing left because you see, despite her efforts to get more work published, nothing seems to be hitting.
So the dance is helping with stress.
Yeah, stress and artistic expression, I think. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if we go back to that quote from the children's book reviewer in our first episode of if you have such success with your writing at age 12, what do you do
Where do you go
where
from
do you
there?
go from there?
Yeah.
Right. And so I get this like sense of frustration that she's not having kind of the success that she was dreaming of. And so dancing gives her an outlet. Now, that is also kind of a problem because Helen, her mom, is moderately successful with her writing, getting a couple more books published. And even Barbara's longtime childhood friend Alice has her work published by Harper in 1938, the same publishing house that had rejected Barbara now several times. And in fact, Barbara is kind of cruel to Alice about her book writing. Tell me, is it out yet? I ought to know, of course, but I have just gone through one of those spells when I never glance at a newspaper and keep in no sort of touch with any bookshop. The only way I can keep up at all with books is by working in a bookshop, I guess.
So she's just like shrugging it off, like, oh,
yeah.
You wrote a little thing. Is it out?
Yeah, because she says like this in a way, like Alice's book is just like any book rather than like her friend's book, right?
Right.
Like, oh, no, I just can't keep up with publishing news, and not like, oh my God, like it's my friend's book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alice does send her a copy, and she does respond writing a brief paragraph about reading it.
So she's just probably feeling bitter.
Yeah. I mean, this is not necessarily unusual for Barbara. If you like look at her letters overall, like she it's not that she doesn't respond to what her friends are saying, but they'll often be like the Barbara show. Like the letters are filled with what's going on in her life. Not much response. Her mother Helen's letters are much the same way.
Okay.
And I would assume that if I ever saw Wilson's letters, they would also be the same, right? Yeah. I mean, I think this is also Nickerson feeling out of touch with their family sometimes because, like, they're so invested in their own stuff.
Right.
Right.
It's just like an unusual way of thinking among these individuals. Yeah.
Yeah. In the summer of 1939, Barbara, who is now 25, is leaning into her desire to learn dance. So she is off to Mills College for the summer and what seems to be a summer intensive in modern dance, and this leaves Nickerson working his day job back home in Boston. That July, while there, she writes a letter to Alice, and she says, "My whole family is still in its perpetually stringent state, of course. Nick is about the only one I know who has a job, likes it, expects to keep it, and earning a modest wage. If I can hang on to him, I ought to be okay. Whether or not I can remains to be seen. This winter I had a bad spell, made a mess of things, and have some ground to recover."
Well, she's taking some like responsibility there.
Yeah, so it's clear that at this point they're having some difficulty in their marriage. She does acknowledge that it likely comes from her, but she does not recover that ground. In August, after leaving the dance program early due to an injury, she travels down to see her friend Alice, and there she receives a short note from Nickerson stating that he's unhappy in their marriage and would like a divorce. Yeah, so Barbara leaves immediately. She heads out the next day for Boston on a bus. She travels for 4 days and nights across the country, obsessing over the fate of her relationship with Nickerson. But when she arrived at their apartment, he's not there. She calls everyone she knows to find out that he's away in New York City, but she can't ascertain when he'll be home or where he's staying. One of the people she does get a hold of, though, is her friend and doctor, Charlie Dunlap. He comes over with like 3 hamburgers, a bottle of whiskey, and unfortunately, what Barbara calls sleeping dope.
Oh no, the doctor.
Yeah.
It's just bringing random. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, by the time Nickerson arrives back home, Barbara begins to suspect that he has met someone else. Now, what is giving her this inclination is unclear. It could just be chalked up to some childhood trauma from the way her parents' marriage fell apart, but there does seem to be some indication that Nickerson might have been actually having an affair.
So you think so from reading the things?
So, there's an interview with the woman he marries later.
Okay.
And she met Barbara during Barbara's life. So she was clearly in the picture while Barbara was alive, since she mentions having met her. So I guess the belief there is that this might have started while Barbara was around. Now, regardless of what is going on, Barbara has resolved not to say anything about the possibility of an affair to him. Instead, she decides she will essentially work on being a better partner. So she says that August, I think that if I can really prove that I'm different, why maybe things will work out. He still doesn't quite believe, as he says, that a leopard can change its spots. He thinks that in a month, things will be wrong again. I mean, this is kind of like the age-old story, like our relationship is going bad, so I'll just fix myself.
Right, but also, like, in the letter, she didn't seem like she wanted him to keep her close because she loves him. She wanted, like, the financial security.
I think, like, because so many people in her life are, like, this sort of, like, artistic, chaotic energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not every artistic person is that chaotic energy. Like, I am definitely not.
No, neither am I.
But we know those types, right?
Yeah.
And I think, like, for her, Nickerson provides, like, some steady. On the other hand, I think sometimes, like, that steady is, like,
boring
to her. Like, I think we're talking about someone who was like, yes, let's walk down the Appalachian Trail. Yes, let's travel, around Europe. And then suddenly, like, we're at home and we're paying the bills.
Yeah.
We're
and,
going
like, all of that stuff that she, like, I'm sure, like, giving up something like all those letters she was writing and, like, all that freedom. It's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
It's a lot to adjust to for her, but at the same time, I could see him. He does seem like more the settling type. He would want a wife who's going to be with him.
Yeah, so, like, I think, like, they were great for a moment because he was in a stage of life where he was like, yes, adventure before I settle down. And she was like, yes, adventure, because that's who I am.
Well, I think any relationship can be, like, great for a moment.
Yeah.
Like, when you're still in that, like, very excitable stage of it, it's going to work. But when these people are so different, it's bound to.
And, I don't know if a relationship with Ed Anderson would have worked out. I mean, even in his own words.
Are you still thinking about Ed? Oh, my God. Aimee.
Because, like, even in his own words, he's essentially like, maybe but he acknowledges, like, maybe we'll be good for a short while.
But it would have worked because, like, his job is travel.
He was like, I am devoted to adventuring.
Yeah, he wants to just continue that, and maybe it would have worked better with Ed.
I don't know.
But, like, Ed's just always that, like, dream that never happened.
I mean, he's
you.
He's my dream.
That's what I meant.
Sorry, Ed.
Sorry, Ed, or sorry, your husband?
I mean, Jeremy's fine. He could find a dolphin or something and be good. Okay, now, during this time, she cannot sleep. So she is taking that sleeping medication that Charlie Dunlap had given her when he came over. So she's using it now nightly.
The sleeping dope?
The sleeping dope, as she called it. Now, from her letters as well, it's clear that despite his willingness to continue their marriage, things are not looking up despite Barbara's optimism. She writes, on his way to work, he gave her a rough pat upon leaving, and she says this is his first gesture of affection since her return. But he's also given her a task, which is to find a new apartment for them, and she believes that's a sign that he's planning to stay with her. That October, the couple rent an apartment on Kent Street in Brookline, Massachusetts. Nickerson's brother moves in with them and plans to stay there until he gets married in January. I feel like if you're going through relationship difficulties, my one piece of advice is, like, do not let another person move in, like, at the same time. Like, there might be a little too many moving parts. Now, Barbara's last known letter to Alice is sent November 4th, 1939. She writes, in my last letter, I told you things were going well, and I thought they were. They continued to go well for a time. At least I thought so, and I was happy and decided that the worst part of the ordeal was over. But that was too easy. No such luck. I don't know what to say now.
Doesn't sound good.
No. She then says, I still think there's a chance that the outcome will be a happy one, but I would have to think that anyway in order to live.
That took a dark turn.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm now realizing I should have provided a content warning at the top of this episode. So,
okay.
So just tread lightly from here.
Really?
Yeah.
How did I not see this part coming?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Because she's so...
Well, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Carry
Now,
on.
on the evening of Thursday, December 7th, we know that Barbara and Nickerson had an argument, and she left their apartment on Kent Street. She had with her her notebook and about $30, and she doesn't return home.
So is that the last of Barbara?
Mm-hmm.
So she said that, and now she's just disappearing?
Yep.
And it's scary because somebody like her, like we already established multiple times in both episodes, she feels her feelings very big.
Yes.
So this is super concerning.
So we know, like, between the November 4th letter in which she's expressing, like, things are not going well, and she has, like, you know, she has to believe that they will get better. And then a month later, they get into an argument, which indicates things are not going well, and then she walks out. And that's the last time someone saw her. Now, it takes 2 weeks for Nickerson to report her missing to the Brooklyn police. The general theory for this delay is that Nickerson may not have been overly concerned about her when she left, given her past history, her independence, right? He asked at the time that her disappearance not be publicized. Like, the way she'd been treated in California when she was a teenager had likely been quite traumatic, and avoiding that kind of press coverage, if she could easily be found, was preferable, right? So he just went to the police and was like, hey, she's been gone.
Right, so he's protecting her in that case, but 2 weeks is a long time considering, like, who did she write that letter to? She wrote it to Alice.
Yeah, so
he might not know that she said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So because Barbara is, like, such an independent, she, like, handles stuff. She travels. She, like, does stuff.
Right? And I wonder if Alice was thinking it was just like a figure of speech.
Yeah, so, like, how do you process that?
How do I go on? You know, people say stuff like that all the time, but they don't mean what she's meaning.
Yeah, and plus, you know, as we said, Barbara expresses everything in big ways.
So big.
Now, the months passed without her. In April, Nickerson tries again. This time, he asks that the information be sent out. The following teletype was sent out to agencies in 8 states, and I want you to pay close attention to this description. Missing from Brookline since December 7th, 1939, Barbara Rogers, married, age 26. I think she was actually 25, 5'7", 125, fair complexion, black eyebrows, brown eyes, dark auburn hair worn in a long bob, left shoulder slightly higher than the right, occasionally wears horn-rimmed glasses.
Huh. And why are we paying close attention?
Because it's going to be important later.
It's going to be important. Okay.
Okay. Now, this time, though, unlike 10 years before when she was 15, Barbara didn't come back. Despite this broader appeal for Barbara, her story doesn't get any news coverage, particularly in comparison to her disappearance when she was 15. One reason is that she was reported missing under her married name and not under the name most people knew her by, Barbara Newhall Follett. Many people did not know the novelist whose books they loved so much was missing until her mother released a book in the 1960s examining Barbara's life through the lens of being a child prodigy. Now, there were many theories over the years about what happened to Barbara. Helen was underwhelmed with the efforts Nickerson was putting into finding Barbara and accused him more than once of having a hand in her disappearance. Wilson, Barbara's dad, seemed to assume that she had left and started a new life, maybe because that's what he had done when he left his family, and he always believed that he and Barbara had a lot in common. Alice, Barbara's friend, seemed to waver back and forth over the years. It seems at times she thought Barbara may have harmed herself, and at others that she could be just living a new life elsewhere. She did cite Barbara's capacity for cruelty as a justification for believing that possibility.
The cruelty for starting over somewhere else?
Yeah. For not letting her family know what happened to her.
I guess it's not wrong, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Barbara's story might sort of draw to a close there, if not for some of the investigative work done by Daniel Mills, through which a new theory arises. His essay, A Place of Vanishing, goes much more into details about this, and it's really a well-crafted read. Like, I enjoyed
You like that book? Yeah.
Well, it's an article in the it's an article plus a follow-up to the article. Now, on Thanksgiving Day in 1948, so we're many years later, a hunter discovers bones near Pulsifer Hill in Holderness, New Hampshire, close to the Durgan Brook and overlooking Squam Lake. In a depression near the water, there was a stand of birch trees where these bones were laying out in the open and covered in a layer of pine needles. His assumption when he first spots them is that they're animal bones, but when he examines the scene more closely, he notices shoes. These, he quickly realizes, are human remains. And when authorities collect these remains, they include portions of the leg bones and foot bones that are still in the shoes. The shoes themselves, which are leather Oxford shoes with a rubber sole. There's also a fragment of a wool overcoat, as well as portions of a belt. At the scene is also a pocketbook, a woman's purse, a metal glasses case with a pair of horn-rimmed glasses inside.
From the description.
There's also a compact with an enameled bird on it. In addition, there's a metal flask, like the kind with that built-in cup, and an empty medicine bottle. When they looked at the contents of the flask, it was determined that it had held water, and the medicine bottle was some sort of unknown barbiturate. This led them to believe that the person they found died maybe of a purposeful overdose.
Was it like the sleeping dope?
So we're getting there.
Are we getting there? Oh, I'm ahead. Okay.
Now, as with any unidentified person, they try to collect as many details as possible to try to understand who this person is. But it was clear these remains had been there for a while, since a birch root had penetrated the clothing. An examination of this suggested the root was at least 5 years old and had been probably penetrated the clothing in like year 3. And they believe that the death occurred more than 8 years before, so prior to 1940. As with any unidentified person, they try to collect as many details as possible to try to understand who this person was. But after receiving a report from the pathologist with the Harvard Medical School, they quickly ascertained that this is likely the body of a missing woman named Elsie Whitmore.
Oh, okay.
Now, in the summer of 1936, Elsie was pregnant and living with her in-laws in Plymouth, New Hampshire, while her husband was away on a job. That summer, she'd been reportedly depressed, which honestly is not unusual during pregnancy, particularly if you're separated from your partner, right?
Mm.
Now, one evening, she took a walk after dinner, hoping to settle her indigestion, and never returned. Though her usual walking routes were scoured and a search was done throughout the area, Elsie remained missing. Elsie was the only missing woman from this area. In fact, the place she went missing from is only a few miles away from where these remains were found. But there are a few discrepancies that didn't match up with the unidentified woman. The shoe size was too large to match Elsie's, and Elsie didn't wear glasses.
So it's not Elsie.
Yeah. So when they asked Elsie's family about the items found on the scene, none of them recognized the pocketbook or the compact as hers. And the closest match was that, Elsie had owned a coat with similar, though not exact, patterning as the piece of wool fabric found at the scene. Now, despite the certainty of law enforcement that they had found Elsie, her family never supported that claim. In fact, they never moved to bury the remains of the woman found near Pulsifer Hill. To them, this was not their loved one. But as author Daniel Mills states, there is another missing woman from the area, Barbara. Her case would not have been considered local since she was missing from Massachusetts and not New Hampshire. Working on a hunch, Mills scoured records looking for the location of the farmhouse that Barbara and Nickerson had rented for just $2.50 a month. Now, Barbara had written about its exact location, just that it, was on a hilltop location and that had been unrented at the time, and the property was by a prosperous farmer, but she never gave its exact location.
So we don't know if it was walking distance or something?
Yeah, so he was like, hey, we know that Barbara loved New Hampshire. We know that she rented a farmhouse in New Hampshire. Where in New Hampshire was it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, years after Barbara disappeared, Nickerson filed for divorce. Mills discovered that in the divorce documents, it states that the rented farmhouse was in Campton and that the couple had, at least part-time, been in residence there between 1937 and 1939. So we know she went missing in 1939.
Mm-hmm.
This helped him narrow his search for where this rented farmhouse was. Using this, he discovered newspaper articles. This is the type of newspaper article where, back in this time period, they would announce the comings and goings of everyone.
Isn't that so? To me, that sounds so weird and invasive, but at the same time, we have things like Facebook and Instagram, and we do it ourselves.
We're like, who's doing what where?
Yeah, we're dishing our own news constantly.
Yeah, like my house, because it was like a summer boarding house, it has like tons of entries of like who's there, who's not there, like who's arriving in the summer, who's leaving for the summer.
Which is super cool for you to have now.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Now, Mills learns that through these, that the house had been on Pulsifer Hill and was known as the White House. The White House, this must have been the house that Barbara described spending time with Nickerson fixing it up. The house is just 1/2 mile from where the unidentified woman's remains were found. It's just down the hill, basically. This has led some to believe that upon leaving the apartment she shared with Nickerson, Barbara traveled to her much-beloved New Hampshire and the place she held so dearly and might have ended her life there in the shadow of some birch trees. Vanessa, I feel like you're about to ask me why we spent 2 episodes covering Barbara's story if, in fact, the mystery of her disappearance has been solved.
I don't really know if I am, because I enjoyed hearing her story so much. Kind of a little bit, because, like, it ended in such a sad, but kind of, I don't want to say predictable. I don't want to say, like, it ended in a way that somebody with feelings so large, like so big.
Yeah.
Like you can see that possibly, happening. But yeah, I mean, this was a lot of time getting to know Barbara.
Yeah. So normally it's like, we don't cover cases that have been solved unless,
right,
they came from My Book Doe, and we
yeah. So what made you? What about this that like got you? I guess.
Well, so in this case, the reason that I'm covering is that the answer lays in one of the most distressing things we have to talk about during our episodes, which is a definitive answer may never happen in this case. Daniel Mills clearly did a lot of legwork here coming up with a possibility, but you would have to be able to prove it through DNA for this case to be resolved.
So it's never, even though we think we know, and we're probably pretty right on what we know happened, there's never going to be a way to prove it.
No, because this seems like it should be simple. Just take the remains that were found, do some DNA testing, and compare it to Barbara's living relatives.
Right.
But they have misplaced the unidentified woman's remains.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we covered stories where remains, like actual human remains, are misplaced? So if that was Barbara's body, it's missing now?
Yeah, so is it somehow, and I don't think it is, Elsie Whitmore? You wouldn't be able to tell. Is it somehow Barbara? You wouldn't be able to tell because they don't
oh my goodness,
know where they are.
So really, she is still technically a missing person, and she always will be.
Yeah, so in this case, you can kind of draw some conclusions based particularly on Daniel Mills' work.
Yeah, and then those remains are always going to be unidentified.
Yes.
So we have these two parts that are never going to get put together.
That resolution. Yeah. Yeah.
It seems like the dramatic ending Barbara would have wanted. Is that terrible of me to say?
Well, I think
it's that it's like continuing the drama.
There is a continuation drama, but what I would love, I think, her half nephew has done an enormous job in putting out her work. So if you're listening to this episode, I encourage you to go spend some time with Barbara's novels. I am just so heartbroken. Lost Island just didn't come out until recently.
Oh, really?
He worked to get it accessible. Yeah. Now, my poem from Barbara is coming up, but before that, I want to end this segment with some of Barbara's own words. This is the ending of Barbara's novel, The House Without Windows, that she published when she was 12. It is about the girl who leaves her family and runs away to the wilderness to disappear. And when the sun again tinged the sky with color, a flock of these butterflies, our purple and gold and green, came swooping and alighted on her head in a circle, the largest in front. Other came in myriads and covered her dress with delicate wing touches. Ebersip held out her arms a moment. A gold and black one alighted on each wrist, and then she rose into the air, and hovering an instant over the great laurel bush, vanished. She was a fairy, a wood nymph. She could be invisible forever to all mortals, save those few who have minds to believe, eyes to see. To these she is ever present, the spirit of nature, a sprite of the meadow, a naiad of the lakes, a nymph of the woods.
We are now going to listen to Amy's poem, Shipmate, Shipmate, read by Kerry O'Malley. A native of New Hampshire, Kerry O'Malley received her A.B. in History and Drama from Duke University and graduated from the American Repertory Theater Institute for Advanced Theater Training at Harvard University. As the youngest of 4 children, Kerry honed her theatrical skills at a young age. Kerry has a staggering number of film, television, and Broadway credits. Recent film credits include her scene-stealing role as Dolores in The Killer, Mother's Mother in Nightbitch, Azalia in Mea Culpa, and Mildred in 6888. Recent television credits include her recurring roles as Megan in A Man on the Inside, Samantha Miles on SEAL Team, first-class passenger Lilah Folger on Snowpiercer, and Mavis in Why Women Kill.
Shipmate, Shipmate. Barbara Newhall Follett, 25. Missing since December 7th, 1939. From Brookline, Massachusetts. 1. The meadow. With a handful of fire blossoms, you remembered how to sing. You were built of this place, the sturdy leather shoes and the green moss, the dewdrops falling from petals. In the purling pink dawn, you could watch a doe pick her way through the grasses, some so tall that she disappeared, but only for a moment. It was her fawn, so young, still spotted in the color of new bark, you'd lose in the meadow. And so you took that speck of light, slipped it between your fingers like a bit of fairy dust. 2. The sea. You heard the sea as though the salt itself called to you, as though it knew the same song as the gulls who only understand how to cry out, circling endlessly. What kind of heartache feels the same as the rolling waves? What vessel could keep you afloat? There are men who promise they are ships, that their rope-calloused hands are strong enough to help keep the course. But at night, you stand alone on the bow, set your own path of constellations, a steady glow of starlight that could guide you anywhere. 3. The mountains. You thought the path to the mountains was through a forest, far from the sea, past the meadow and its heady flowers, past the ferns, your footsteps hidden beneath their feathery fronds. You wove the magic of this place. Fingers twisting spells you spin until all that is left is the white of snow, the icy trickle of water in the brook. Here, pine reminds you of all the trails you walked, the dark needles inches deep before you reach the earth. You remembered there was once a fawn who knew the way to disappear was simply to become nature itself, a sprite, naiad, a nymph.
For more information about our show or to check out other shows on the network, please visit evergreenpodcasts.com. Bye, Vanessa.
Bye, Amy.